Hello friends and greetings for the day. Welcome back to our channel TM Square, where we look forward to give you the best knowledge on software testing concepts and related certifications. And today again we are bringing back to you another episode of Technical Talks with Neeraj, where we are going to talk about what makes you a better tester day by day. Now, a very common understanding which we presume when starting a career of being a QA, given by a lot of people, that QA is something which is pretty easy and it can be performed by any individual. You may not need a lot of detailed knowledge, a lot of understanding of the technical traits like programming languages, architecture, etc. to get started. I would like to share some of the thoughts of mine again here to give you some good building understanding on the foundation level, that what basically makes you a perfect tester to continue your journey, not just to start and stop on the way. And the very first point I would love to talk about is what exactly a tester needs to know, right? What are the responsibilities? What are the soft and hard skills a tester should be aware of, which would be pretty much helpful for a lot of you who are preparing for their interviews, getting into as a QA role. Number one thing, do not underestimate testing. Testing is not an easy job at all right? A lot of people have created this myth across the world, considering that they are not a tester. They thought that testing is all about just writing test cases and executing them in a very simple way and reporting some defects, which could be an anomaly from the requirement deviations. But the point is, in order to just create that test case, we need a lot of skill set. Number one thing, you need to have a good understanding of what exactly is the product. Now, assume that you are trying to test something which you have never seen before, right? Now, people say that testing is pretty easy, just like using something. For example, you have been using a phone, and if I ask you that, hey, do you know how to test a phone? You would say, of course, I've been using a phone for a long time, and I know how to test it. I know how to take pictures, I know how to make calls, I know how to change the settings and transform a phone to something different, right? Of course, that's true. But the point is, it's just because you have been using phone for years together and you have probably like 10 years of experience of testing a smartphone, right? But still, if you go ahead and talk to a mobile application tester, or if you go ahead and talk to a hardcore mobile tester, they will have completely different thought process than you, because you have been using the product like a user. But there are a lot of technical parameters behind the screen which I think you have never seen before. Now, that is where I wanted to clarify that the myth that testing is easy is not correct. Okay? It's difficult. Yes, I'm not trying to scare you here, but I'm just trying to make sure that you do not underestimate testing. Testing is not an easy job. You need to know the bits and pieces of the product, the technology, the platform which you are going to test. If you are a good tester, why don't you go ahead and test automotive systems? Because you need automotive skills. You need to understand on what principles, what factors does automotive application works. And there are different ways of testing the same thing. Following one of our principles of testing, that testing is context dependent. Testing is even performed differently for different products. It's not exactly the same for the same product, right? So testing, again, is not so easy. So to get started with that simple activity, which people say that, hey, a tester is just responsible for writing some test cases and that's it. He is pretty much done. And he or she has to run those test cases when the application gets delivered. The point is, no. In order to write those test cases, we have to spend a lot of time. So make sure that you have been through the requirements. Make sure that you have understood what architecture is being built. Again, understood, right? You're not requested to create the architectures or make yourself as an architect. More importantly, you need to understand what kind of design is being built behind the screen, whether this design is going to support this or not. You can relate these examples with very layman level examples like construction of house. You do understand that you are not a masonry, you are not an architect of building a house, but you understand the concept of structure of a house. That, hey, if I have to build 4-floor or 4-story building, then how many pillars would be supporting that? An architect designs it, says that, hey, this is the positioning of my different pillars, and this is the count of the pillars which you may need in order to construct a 4-floor house. Now, the point is here that a masonry has to understand what would be the positioning of the pillars. so that they can let you know about the layout of the rooms and the walls, that how they will cover up those pillars that does not obstruct your engagement while entering the house, right? So the journey is not just limited to writing some test cases. We are insisting on writing efficient test cases. Writing test cases is not a big deal, and you can call yourself as a tester for sure. But the point is, are you a good tester is the question here. And making yourself as a good tester, you should be able to think from a destructive approach, from a negative mindset, that what could basically go wrong here? What is that may not support? The platform may not support the functionality. What is that which is contradicting with the expectations of the user? And thinking from that perspective allows you to create different set of test cases. And that too, not just limited to writing some test cases, making efficient test cases. So going through the requirement, understanding the architecture, understanding the platform, what you're going to test on, is all a part of preparatory work for a test engineer to write some efficient test cases, without which your test cases may not result into or yield great number of defects or great defects at all, right? So being a tester, it does not just mean that you look at the requirements, frame some test cases, but you also need to think from the angle of a user, that where all a user can find issues. More importantly, if you have some good understanding of the domain, it builds better coverage on your confidence. Given that you have been working with a particular application platform like Java, Python, or maybe some particular database, you know the anomalies, the limitations, the drawbacks of that platform. And you would be certainly hitting your test cases in those corners, those edges for sure, to make sure that, hey, isn't it this side is working fine? Because it could be possible, but we have seen that database has limitation on this part, and the customer has one of the expectations at this point to do some functionality in this corner too. So we just want to make sure that whether this is happening or not, right? So that's one thing. The technical traits is about your platform, about your technology, about your requirements, what the customer is asking you to, and given that you possess all these knowledge, would lead you to write great test cases to find more defects. Don't forget, team, testing is not about validating a product. We did this mistake once, we don't want to do it again. Testing is just not about testing a software product or hardware product. Testing is to prove that the system doesn't work. Okay, you have to do and die, prove that this piece of code is not going to function. And you need to find different ways to prove that statement. You have to find failures. It was never said, okay, none of the objectives, nowhere it mentions that testing is about testing a product. There are objectives like finding defects, conducting failures, preventing defects, gaining confidence about the quality of the product, mitigating risk. A number of things are objectives of testing, but none of the objectives says that testing is about testing a product, okay? Because testing consists of all these objectives. We have to find failures. Anyhow, no matter your test cases are about interfaces, systems, protocols, right, platform, or technical abilities, no matter what your test cases are about, that we cover in different levels. You can talk about security, portability, accessibility, usability, right? Performance. But the point is, prove me this piece of code doesn't work. That's the objective of a tester, and that makes you a better tester. And that's one of the parameter of making yourself as a better tester. The more you have the knowledge about the product being tested, the better you will be in finding defects, in turn making yourself more better tester day by day. The second important thing here is your psychology. You don't have to do friendship with your developers professionally. Okay, professionally you're just colleagues having different responsibilities to be delivered towards the quality goals of the product. You don't have to understand that, hey, he is one of my friend, given that he's a developer, how can I just, go ahead and publish 10 defects on his or her name? The point here is your psychology is completely different. You have been hired to prove that this person would have done so many mistakes. And we don't bring our personal emotions here. We don't bring any kind of relationship here. That, okay, considering that he is one of my colleagues who has been traveling with me for so many organizations, let me just, tell him unofficially that got these defects, can you fix it? That would probably maintain a healthy relationship for sure, probably again, right? But the point is, it will not build up a better quality system because you found some defects and you unofficially told him to fix it. But what about the modules which were tested by another tester? And what if he could not figure out those defects? You are responsible for leaking defects to the production because you excused it, right? There is a professional way of thinking, politely talking to people and making sure that your psychology is different from that of the developer. And that's the reason you have been hired for. A tester is hired for their psychology, their perception, their mindset towards the product that, hey, we don't love you. We don't treat you as our baby. We are just having a victimized product and we need to make sure that we find any number of defects on top of it, right? A teacher, certainly, one way loves their students, but when it comes to examination, you might have seen a transformation in them. The transformation is to make sure that today, I don't know you, as simple as that. Today, I just know that who has done better preparation will get better scores. No leniency, no kind of, easiness in the invigilation of the examination. They pretty much try to behave strict so that, come on, this is the time where you have to justify your knowledge. This is the time where you have to justify your hard work, which is going to help you. I may be a very friendly teacher to you, but I could help you now. But what about your future? What about your lifetime? What about your career? Will I be there to give you marks there or scores or performance rating? Not at all, right? So same way here, a tester has no leniency in what kind of module, what kind of developer's module is being tested, irrespective of who has built it, irrespective of what functionality it has. A tester's mindset should always be concentrating towards proving that the system will fail, trying in different angles. Okay, you are just there to destroy the product at any cost so that that cost can be saved in the production. See, again, each and every word has a deep meaning if you deep dive, right? You're trying to invest some cost here internally to reduce the cost of failure in the external environment. And that's where you have been hired. Your salaries are being paid just to make sure that these defects are not leaked. Now, people say that why testers are getting blamed for releases or delays in release. The point is that, yes, if we leak the defects, we are responsible for it. If we don't find the defects on time, we are responsible for it, right? A tester has to think from a perception of justifying that the system will not work in production. At any point, we should always be contradicting with the assumptions made, with the solutions provided, with the workaround being produced, all that. We should be contradicting from a user perception that what if this could happen? What if that would happen? What if a user performs this? Now, I understand your perception could be very, very wild sometimes, could be very, very different, and you may be rejected with your perception sometime. But yes, we want that confirmation. For us, that rejection becomes a confirmation. That, for an example, I told them that what if people try to post videos on Facebook? Then the customer says, hey, okay, you know what? This is a platform where we don't post videos. We are only restricted to pictures and emojis, etc. All right, thank you. Right? Because you just got a clarity on your requirement that videos are not in scope. But at least you raised that terminology, you raised that functionality so that you got a clarity because the requirement did not have it. Right? So you always think from so weird angles that either you get clarity or you get sure that what is the expectation, what is the ask from the business, right? But at the same time, being so negative at some point of time, being negative for a long period of time, for example, me, where I've been doing testing for more than a decade, it certainly becomes at some point of time that you start finding out negativity in your day-to-day work as well. For example, today, if I'm watching a movie, if I'm watching an advertisement, if I'm looking forward to have some kind of, interactive banners, multimedia posters, etc. I'm more than getting the message from the poster or advertisements. I look forward to find mistakes. Why? Because I'm a good test manager. I have been a good tester myself. And my mindset now, after 10 years or 13 years of time, has become very, very negative towards proving that the given thing is not correct. Point. But is that what we expect in reality? No. Given that your job invites you to be negative, you should not be negative to the people you're working with. Mind your language, mind your statements, mind your words when you talk to them, when you report something, when you write emails, or when you chat with your colleagues. Remember one thing, team, being a good tester, it requires you to control your emotions towards the people. You should only be negative, you should only be destructive to the product. There are some examples to understand this, right? Number one example here is when you talk about, for example, if I say, when you talk about saying a statement about a defect to the developer, that, hey developer, you have done a mistake in this code. Okay? And other way around, you say, hey developer, your code has one of the mistake. Did you just realize the difference between them? The number one says, hey developer, you have done a mistake in the code. That means you're pointing that finger on that person, proving that this person is good for nothing, which is incorrect. And the second statement, you're saying, hey developer, your code has a mistake. That means it's pointing the finger on the work product, not on the person. Now, at any point, you should mind this particular language of pointing the finger on an individual, because that can hurt him. But pointing a finger on the code, pointing the finger on the work products or the code will not hurt the code at all. People will remain with those statements, those words, till you work with them. They will always remember. It's just like a kind of wound. It would retain for some time, for sure, or maybe forever. But we testers, we need to maintain the ego relationship, the respect for the other people working along with you, that, hey, you are not wrong. Mistakes can happen by human. Okay? Humans are error prone. We all agree to that. And being a tester, no matter a good tester, you are not someone who is robot, right? And cannot do mistakes. You are 100% accurate every time. Humans are error prone and mistakes can happen. But the point is, we are not pointing out to you that you are not good for anything. We are pointing those mistakes back on the work product or the code or the application which is being built. So nobody will feel bad. Why do we say that people have contradictions between testers and developers? And the reason is the way we talk to them, the way we inform them about problem. Nobody likes listening bad about themselves. No matter, you can raise your hand and say, come on, Neeraj, I'm very polite and I love listening about how to improvise myself. Thank you. But the point is, more than 90% people do not agree to this, that I feel happy about listening about myself as a bad part or a bad person, or maybe someone trying to question my professionalism, right? So point here is, think it on yourself. When you have been putting a lot of efforts, working 12 hours a day, producing, optimum level of test cases, giving great number of defects, and your manager steps in and says, what are you doing here? What kind of contribution are you making? Doesn't it feel bad for a moment? You may put your papers the right moment if you're very, very aggressive, or maybe if you're slightly polite, you may take 3 to 4 days, search for a job, and when you have an offer letter in your hand, and then you throw your papers, right? Point is, everyone feels bad about it. So being a tester, we do not do that. Though our job is inviting us to be negative, destructive, but only to the application, only to the product we are being testing, not to the people who are building it. We always maintain healthy relationship with our developers in terms of having the communications being provided, in terms of getting the bugs resolved, getting the defects resolved. That relationship has to be healthy. That, okay, when I talk to a developer smiles and says, oh, come on, man, thank you for letting me know. I'll just fix it up and let you know. This is what we're talking about, having a relationship, not being kind enough to excuse their bugs, and not being so kind enough that you directly put that, finger pointing on them that, hey, you're good for nothing, what? We are the testers, we are doing everything here, and we don't need developers. Never, right? So psychology is another important thing which we need to take care of, that when you mention your defect reports, when you write an email, when you are chatting with another, colleague of yours, especially when you're talking with developers or architects, you never put that straightforward to them. Talk to them in a very fact-focused, neutral way without criticizing them. Okay? Just how much ever you want, you can criticize the work products or the application which is being built, but not the people. Because think why they behave as they do. Right? Take it on yourself and you would understand that too. Now, further making it is like having all that information. The third parameter which I wanted to talk quickly is the documentation, the information which you capture. A lot of the time, a tester ignores some critical information about a defect, writing or updating the status of the test execution, coverage measurements of those with the requirement or with any other test basis. Now, the point is, a tester can misinterpret information, which could misguide the whole management or project managers. That where we are, what we are doing right now, how much we have tested, how much more to test, and a lot many other things like that. So gathering the information, capturing the information, because you are the one as a tester who are individually interacting with work products at points. Just for an example, if I'm talking about a defect report, as a tester, you were performing a test case, complete alone, right? And something failed. Now, you know what happened, why you think this test case has failed, and you are just worried about sharing this information with every other stakeholder because you want this to be resolved. Now, the point is, how will you let them know? Because they were not there when this happened. So you write a defect report. Now you understand that how critical your defect report becomes in terms of letting someone know who was not there when this failure happened. So capturing the information, capturing the details, capturing those minute information like taking a screenshot, creating a video on the screen, right? Or capturing all that critical information that, hey, when a user clicks only on this button, this is what happens. If not, it works good. So giving those concrete information in the description of a defect report would be important. Sometimes you report a defect and the developer rejects it. Could be a possibility due to environment issues. Developer never sees that defect at all. But you are getting it, the reason could be your environment, because your environment is different than that of a developer. So capturing the environment details becomes again important. Similarly, there could be build versions, which are also crucial. For example, today you're working on 4.5 of a build and you got a defect and you reported to the developer and the developer said, for me, it's working fine because he's working on 4.6 and accidentally the defect is already resolved. And he says, come and see, I'll show you here that in my version it is working fine. So this conflict results into disputes, right? Contradictions, unless you capture the right information. Hey, can we just cross-check what version you are testing it in and what I found it in? Okay, you found it in 4.5, but I'm working on 4.6. So this is an assumption that the 4.6 has already resolved this defect. Makes sense, right? So everything, whatever I just mentioned, brings back to one conclusion, that your information plays a vital role to let the other stakeholders know that how crucial is your status update, right? If you provide misinterpretation in your testing information, if you don't capture the details appropriately, it could misguide the whole project management or project schedule. So right from defect report, test case execution details, test case summaries, all that test case details, everything what you manage has to be appropriate, has to be complete, clear, concise, so that other stakeholders understand what you're doing all alone is very transparent to everyone, right? So I hope that gives you a very clear picture of what exactly is going to make you a better tester. I'm not saying perfect tester, okay? A better tester day by day which may at some point result into a perfect tester, right? So today we were just talking about how to make yourself a better tester day by day. We'll continue these kind of discussions in our upcoming episodes, weekly ones. Look forward to them. And feel free to drop your comment, drop your queries, drop your questions, contradictions with what we are talking about here, because I'm looking forward to hear from you. And we would love to talk about that and respond back to you, right? So that's all from this particular video, team. Should you have anything else, feel free to comment below. I'm always there to answer your queries and respond to them well. Till then, keep learning, keep exploring, keep understanding the context. Thanks for watching the video, team, and happy learning.